cadaver of a woman, and this was very important for me because I was facing not a skeleton but the three-dimensional form of a dead individual.
Scientists have finally analyzed Joan of Arc's hair, and the results shake everything we believed about her courage, battles, visions, strength, and final moments. Each strand reveals new mysteries, turning her victories, imprisonments, wounds, choices, and legacy into shocking clues. Now everything we knew about her changes forever, and what they discovered will leave you breathless. The truth behind the relics of Saint Joan of Arc. European experts recently re-examined relics that were thought to be connected to Saint Joan of Arc. Their findings have changed the understanding of many people. People had long believed that these sacred pieces were the remains of the French figure from the 15th century. However, scientific analysis now reveals that the relics are not actually linked to Joan of Arc. The experts now believe that the materials likely come from an ancient Egyptian mummy instead. This discovery challenges a belief that had been held for more than a century and raises new questions about how these relics were identified and understood for so long. Joan of Arc, a young woman who played a significant role in French history, was burned at the stake in the city of Rouen in 1431. Her death became a key part of France's history, and objects linked to her life or execution gained value over time. These alleged relics were found in 1867 in a jar hidden in a pharmacy attic in Paris. The jar had an inscription claiming to hold remains from under the stake where Joan of Arc was executed. The relics were accepted by the church based on this inscription and the beliefs surrounding it. They were eventually placed in a museum in Chinon belonging to the Archdiocese of Tours. For years, people believed and respected these relics as genuine. The discovery that relics thought to be connected to Joan of Arc may actually be from an Egyptian mummy was unexpected, but that is what the analysis has shown. Philippe Charlier, a forensic scientist at Raymond Poincaré Hospital near Paris, played a key role in examining these items. He was granted permission by the French Church to study the relics more closely. Charlier was shocked by the results of the research, as they did not align with his initial expectations. He never thought that the relics could have originated from a mummy. The findings were surprising because they contradicted both historical beliefs and earlier religious beliefs. Charlier and his colleagues examined limited and fragile materials. Among them were a charred piece of human rib, possibly exposed to high heat, pieces of material resembling burnt wood, and a 15-centimeter fragment of linen. They also found a cat femur, which fits with the medieval tradition of throwing black cats onto the pyres of those accused of witchcraft. This discovery raised questions about the purpose of the relics. This new discovery challenges the previous belief that these pieces were from a 15th century French figure. It complicates the understanding of how relics were recognized in the 18,000s and how assumptions may have affected their validation. During that time, scientific tools were not as sophisticated, and identifying historical items relied on handwritten records, stories passed down orally, or the beliefs of the finders. The discovery of a jar in an attic with a label would have been considered solid evidence back then, particularly in a period when relics held significant cultural and religious significance. In 1867, when the relics were found, the inscription on them guided how people understood them. The inscription said the remains were discovered under the stake where Joan of Arc was executed. Since the story matched known historical events and there was no reason to doubt it, the church accepted the relics without scientific investigation. The relics were respected and later put on display in a museum for people to see. The museum in Chinon, run by the Archdiocese of Tours, was where the relics were exhibited and safeguarded. Visitors who saw the relics thought they were observing a tangible link to Joan of Arc's last moments. The latest scientific analysis completely changed our understanding of the relics thought to belong to Joan of Arc. Using modern techniques unavailable in the 19th century, experts were able to identify unique characteristics in the bone, fabric, and wood. The results revealed discrepancies between the materials found and what would be expected from the 15th century. The bone displayed similarities to Egyptian mummies rather than remains from a medieval execution site in France. The linen fragment also resembled materials used for mummified remains, not linen from the 15th century. The carbonized wood pieces believed to be from the stake did not support the long-standing belief. Overall, These findings led researchers to conclude that the relics did not originate from Joan of Arc. This finding changes the way people see these artifacts and interpret history. Even though it doesn't alter Joan of Arc's place in history, it does demonstrate how items can be mistakenly identified when information is scarce. It also shows how scientific advancements can rectify past misconceptions. For over 100 years, individuals thought these objects were authentic, and the Church endorsed them because they were thought to be linked to a significant historical event. The recent discoveries now disconnect the relics from Joan of Arc's narrative and associate them with a completely different era and location. Charlier and his team's research highlights the significance of thoroughly studying historical artifacts. Scientific testing can uncover new information, even if items have inscriptions or strong historical backgrounds. Their analysis indicated that the relics were probably fake, made with mummy fragments. The cat bone, while linked to a medieval tradition, doesn't alter the main finding that the relics are not from Joan of Arc. The finding that these items are actually from ancient Egypt, not the 15th century, changes the way we see their history. It also makes us wonder how they ended up in the attic of a Paris pharmacy and who wrote the inscription connecting them to Joan of Arc. Even though these specific facts are still unknown, the research results give us a better idea of where the relics really came from. A recently conducted analysis has debunked a long-standing belief by providing solid evidence. It has revealed that something considered a valuable connection to a historical figure is actually something else entirely. While the materials still hold historical importance, they now reveal how artifacts were recognized, gathered, and revered in the past. This discovery highlights the process of correcting misconceptions, making new findings, and how science can revise previously held beliefs. The clear scientific review of the investigations. The scientists conducted a thorough examination of the remains using various high-tech scientific techniques. They utilized mass spectrometry, infrared spectrometry, atomic emission spectrometry, electron microscopy, and pollen analysis. In addition, they employed a unique but significant approach by enlisting the expertise of two top fragrance professionals in the perfume industry. These individuals were Sylvain Delacourt from Guerlain and Jean-Michel Durier from Jean Patou, who are renowned for their expert sense of smell. The field of studying ancient diseases through smell is still relatively new. The idea was sparked when a scientist named Philippe Charlier noticed a variety of scents coming from historical corpses he had examined. This made him wonder if smell could provide insights into the nature of these remains. To test this theory, Delacourt and Duriez were provided with relics, along with other bone and hair samples from Charlier's lab. They were not informed about the samples they were smelling, and they couldn't discuss their findings with each other. Even though they worked independently, both experts detected a slight smell of burnt plaster and a subtle vanilla-like aroma coming from the relics. The smell of burning plaster matched a detail from historical records about Joan of Arc being burned on a plaster stake instead of wood. Plaster was used to make the burning process last longer and more painful. This detail was well known, and the fragrance experts' discovery of the burnt plaster scent seemed to confirm it. However, the scent of vanilla was unexpected and did not align with a typical cremation. According to Charlier, the presence of vanillin, which gives off a vanilla smell, suggests slow decomposition rather than burning at the stake. This compound is usually found in mummified bodies, not in those who died from burning. After this clue came to light, more evidence indicated that the remains looked more like a mummy rather than burnt human remains. Black crust found on the rib and cat femur was tested using microscopic and chemical methods. These tests showed that the material was not burnt, but instead had absorbed a mixture of plant-based and mineral substances. There were no signs of muscle, skin, fat, or hair on the bones, which would usually be present if they had been burned. Charlier, who is familiar with burnt human remains through his forensic work, noted that this material did not resemble burnt tissue at all. The dark coating found on the bones matched the embalming materials used in ancient times, such as wood resins, bitumen, and minerals like malachite. The presence of gypsum also gave off a plaster-like smell. The linen cloth accompanying the relics had a coating similar to traditional mummy wrappings. There were high concentrations of pine pollen discovered, even though pine trees did not grow in Normandy during Joan of Arc's time. However, pine resin was commonly used in Egyptian embalming, leading to the belief that the remains may have come from a mummy. Two compelling scientific findings ultimately supported this conclusion. Initially, carbon-14 dating placed the bones between the 3rd and 6th centuries BC, a time period much older than when Joan of Arc lived in the 15th century. Additionally, the spectrometry analysis of the rib, cat femur, and black fragments closely resembled signatures found in Egyptian mummies from that time period, rather than the expected patterns of burnt human bones. These results combined unmistakably demonstrated that the remains were not what they were initially believed to be. Charlier mentioned that during the Middle Ages in Europe, mummies were often used in medical treatments. This practice was well known back then. In 1867, there was a resurgence of interest in Joan of Arc, who had been largely forgotten, but was brought back into the spotlight by historians. It is speculated that during this time, relics may have been created or modified to enhance her symbolic significance and gain more public admiration. These relics may have been passed off as authentic remains to bolster this growing national myth. Anastasia Tsaliki, a paleopathologist from the University of Durham in the United Kingdom, finds the project fascinating. Paleopathology is a field that combines forensic science with the study of historical events to enhance our knowledge of the past. While history is typically seen as a social science, the integration of forensic tools adds a higher level of accuracy. Tsaliki mentioned that Charlier's project takes it a step further by merging forensic techniques with archaeometry, archaeobotany, and osteology, resulting in a thorough scientific approach. One aspect of the well-known story of Joan of Arc is the belief, found in historical records, that some of her body parts did not completely burn when she was executed. Documents from that period detail how she was burned multiple times to ensure nothing sacred was left. It was believed that certain organs survived the fire, seen as a miraculous and exceptional occurrence. Modern science can easily explain why organs like the heart and intestines are able to withstand fire. It's because they have high water content. This fact is well known in the field of forensic science. Due to their high water content, these organs do not burn easily and can remain undamaged even in extreme fires. Charlier, a forensic scientist, often observes this phenomenon in his work. The survival of these organs during fires is not a miracle. It is just a natural result of how the human body reacts to intense heat. The investigation into these ancient objects is expected to gain a lot of public interest, particularly in France, where Joan of Arc is a significant cultural and historical icon. Even though this situation may not create as much debate as the Shroud of Turin, it will still appeal to those passionate about history, religion, and national pride. Charlier says the Church is ready to acknowledge the findings of science. By using modern scientific methods, carefully observing, and logically analyzing, the research found that the supposed relics of Joan of Arc are not actually from the 15th century warrior. Instead, they are from an ancient mummy that existed centuries before her. This discovery solves a mystery and demonstrates how science can shed light on historical events previously shrouded in myth and doubt, the truth behind the relics and the story that survives. Nearly 600 years following the execution of Joan of Arc, people worldwide are still interested in her story. In April 2007, scientists at Raymond Poincaré Hospital in France published new findings in the journal Nature. The researchers announced that relics thought to be from Joan's pyre were actually fake. The remains, such as a rib, did not show any signs of burning, but instead revealed embalming marks. This revelation cast doubts on the true cause of these relics. The scientists analyzed the fragments using carbon-14 to find out how old they were. According to the results, the artifacts were from a time between the 3rd and 6th centuries BC. Based on this, the researchers believe that the remains probably belonged to an Egyptian mummy. During the Middle Ages, people sometimes used powdered mummy remains in medicines and mixtures, so these discoveries matched up with what was known about that time. The artifacts were found in 1867 in the attic of a Paris apothecary. During this time, there was a renewed interest in Joan of Arc and her story. The fake artifacts were likely made to increase the mystery surrounding her. This plan may have worked because in 1869, only 2 years later, the Catholic Church began the process of making her a saint, which was later completed in 1920. For a long time, the Church thought the relics were real. In 1909, the Church officially acknowledged them as probably authentic. But in 2007, a scientific study revealed that the relics were fake. Despite this revelation, Joan of Arc's legacy remains strong. Our knowledge about Joan is quite comprehensive, thanks to the detailed transcript of her heresy trial in 1431. This trial not only resulted in her execution, but also ensured that her words, actions, and character were meticulously documented. These records have been crucial in understanding her life. Another valuable cause of information comes from additional testimonies gathered during a posthumous retrial in 1455. This retrial was initiated by King Charles VII and Joan's mother and approved by Pope Calixtus III. The main objective was to restore Joan's reputation and thoroughly review the accusations that led to her death. Thanks to these two sets of records, Joan's story has been preserved in a clear, detailed, and well-maintained manner. Joan of Arc was born in a small farming village in northeastern France around the year 1412. Her family lived a simple life, and Joan's childhood was filled with typical duties of a peasant girl. She helped with household chores and learned important skills wanted in a rural setting. Joan was taught how to sew, spin, and was raised with a strong religious upbringing. Many people mistakenly believe that her name comes from a place called Arc, but in truth, Dark was just her family's surname and not a location. In Joan's early years, France was greatly impacted by the 100 Years' War, a long conflict that started in 1337 when King Edward III of England tried to seize the French throne. The war lasted for many years, with battles and political disputes leading to England gaining control of parts of France by the 15th century. Despite having some French supporters, the English prevented the rightful heir, Dauphin Charles, from becoming king after his father's death in 1422. When Joan was 13 years old, she started hearing voices that she thought were holy. Joan believed these voices belonged to Saint Michael the Archangel, as well as Saints Catherine and Margaret, who were also young and pure like her. According to Joan, these voices had a message from God for her. They said she had a special mission to help end the English occupation and assist Charles in becoming the rightful king of France. As Joan got older, the voices became even more persistent, especially around the year 1428 when she was 16 years old. The urgent messages from the voices made Joan believe she had no choice but to obey, even though the task seemed impossible given her age, background, and social status. Joan was determined to follow what she thought were divine instructions. She went to Vaucouleurs, a nearby town where soldiers loyal to Charles were stationed. Joan explained her mission to the garrison. The captain was unsure and sent her home, but Joan heard voices telling her to keep going. In January 1429, Joan went back to the town. This time, she convinced people to let her go to the French court. When Joan finally arrived at the court, she persuaded the struggling Dauphin Charles to hear her out. After discussing her plans and motivations, Charles decided to heed her advice. He provided her with soldiers to join the fight. Joan wasn't just a figurehead for the troops. She actively participated in battles, wielding a sword that she believed in for its effectiveness in combat, despite claiming she never personally executed anyone. Following the guidance of the voices she heard, she played a key role in defending the city of Orléans against the English siege. Her strong leadership and unwavering determination led to several significant victories. After the city was released from enemy control, Joan carried on with her mission. Following various fights, the route to Reims, where French kings were traditionally crowned, was made safe. In July of 1429, the Dauphin was finally crowned as King Charles VII. Despite his coronation, Joan kept fighting for France. In June of 1429, Joan got her troops ready for the battle in Jargeau. She told them they were following God's plan and boosted their morale with her strong belief. Joan encountered more danger in these battles than she had expected when she first volunteered to assist. In May 1430, Joan was captured by French collaborators and sold to the English for 10,000 francs. She was imprisoned in Rouen for a year, where they tried to convict her of witchcraft. Joan stayed calm during long interrogations, and her interrogators couldn't prove the charge. Joan was eventually coerced into admitting her guilt. This led to her being sentenced to life in prison for heresy. Soon after, she was once again accused by the authorities for wearing men's clothing, which they considered a sin because she had been previously told not to wear it. During the trial, it became apparent that Joan may have been set up, as her women's clothing may have been taken away from her, leaving her with no other choice. Due to this accusation, Joan was sentenced to death. On May 30, 1431, she was burned at the stake. Her story continues to shape modern thought. The detailed records of Joan of Arc's trial provide a unique insight into a young woman who was both very human and very determined. The transcripts depict her as strong and confident, but also someone who adhered to the beliefs and practices of her era. By preserving her own words and reactions, these records still captivate modern readers and enable them to view her life in a fresh light. This combination of historical facts and personal emotions ensures that her story remains relevant and prompts people to delve into questions about her identity, beliefs, and visions. Today, scientists often analyze historical figures from a medical or psychological perspective to try and understand what may have caused their unusual experiences. Many experts have put forward various explanations for the voices Joan heard. These explanations range from issues with the inner ear to different brain tumors, as well as mental health disorders like schizophrenia and psychopathy. One popular theory, mentioned in a paper from the journal Epilepsia in 1991, suggests that Joan may have had what the authors called ecstatic epileptic auras. This theory aims to link the intense, vivid experiences Joan described with modern neurological conditions. Even with explanations from science, the question remains complicated. Biographer Donald Spoto, who wrote a book about Joan of Arc in 2007, highlights that Joan lived in a time when faith influenced everything. Back in the 15th century, people believed in signs from God, but they also acknowledged mental illness, even though they didn't understand it well. Not everyone who said they heard heavenly messages was taken seriously. For example, Charles VII's father thought his body was made of glass, and people knew he was not thinking clearly. Joan of Arc was remarkable because she not only asserted that her voices were genuine, but also managed to persuade numerous individuals of their authenticity. Her charm, self-assurance in her purpose, and the clarity with which she communicated her visions helped her garner backing. At that period in France, particularly among those yearning for guidance and resilience amid turmoil, her unwavering belief seemed impactful. Her influence motivated soldiers, affected leaders, and played a role in key events in the conflict between France and England. Even today, many years later, attempts to change or question her story have not diminished her importance in history. Joan of Arc is still revered and praised as both a religious and patriotic figure, particularly in France. Starting in the 1800s, when nationalism became popular in Europe, Joan's likeness has been featured in numerous art pieces. Various forms of literature and performances have been created based on her life, showing how different people and time periods have been inspired by her tale. Her impact extended into the 20th century and beyond. More than 24 films were made about her, and she was featured in songs, video games, and TV shows. Her name and image have been used in advertising for various products, associating her bravery and dedication with the values companies aim to promote. For instance, a famous canned bean brand using her name suggests that Joan stood by her beliefs till the end, implying she would be honored to have her name associated with their product. During the two world wars, Joan's image was often shown in propaganda in various countries like the United States, Britain, and France. Governments used her story to encourage loyalty, bravery, and togetherness. The Vichy government in France also used her death to criticize the British, even though France was under German control during that period. In recent years, Joan of Arc's influence has continued to be felt in French politics. This was evident during the presidential race leading up to the 2007 elections. Politicians from various backgrounds used her name to win over voters. Jean-Marie Le Pen, a veteran far-right politician, praised Joan as a symbol of French patriotism, highlighting her as a figure who embodied the beliefs of his party, the Front National. He utilized her story to emphasize themes of national pride and identity. Meanwhile, from the other end of the political spectrum, socialist Ségolène Royal also expressed admiration for Joan. As the sole female candidate among the major contenders, Royal viewed Joan as her political muse. She identified with Joan as someone who confronted difficult obstacles, but persevered in fighting for her country's well-being, just as Joan did in the past. Joan's popularity in French culture is evident in the fact that both sides of the political spectrum admire her. She is a rare historical figure who is praised by people with diverse political views and remains popular with the public. Her story is appealing to those who value national pride, as well as those who are inspired by qualities like courage, determination, and leadership. On April 25th, during a speech in Rouen, the city where Joan of Arc was executed, future French President Nicolas Sarkozy talked about how her name has been misused. He reprimanded the notion that any political group could claim sole ownership of Joan's legacy. Sarkozy stressed that Joan belonged to all of France, not to any particular party, and that her image or story should not be manipulated to support any one political agenda. By stating, "Joan is France," he captured the concept that Joan's significance goes beyond any one explanation. Throughout history, Joan of Arc has been a cause of inspiration for artists, thinkers, politicians, and ordinary individuals. Her enduring appeal suggests that she embodies more than just her personal life. Whether considered from a religious, historical, national, or cultural perspective, she signifies resilience, certainty, and the influence of faith. Her young age, courage, and ultimate demise have combined to create a compelling story that captures people's interest time and again. Despite attempts by modern experts to explain her vision scientifically, her impact remains strong. The scientific theories simply add another dimension to the ongoing quest to comprehend her. Each new generation discovers fresh significance in her life, posing new inquiries and offering new perspectives, while still referring back to the fundamental facts documented in her trial. The trial transcripts are crucial for learning about Joan. They demonstrate her ability to handle tough questions, defend herself confidently, and display bravery. Despite facing intense pressure, she remained steadfast in her beliefs. The records portray someone who was well-informed, cautious of risks, and dedicated to her cause. Her story captivates many people because it combines elements of faith, history, psychology, national identity, and human emotion. While it can be analyzed scientifically, it also carries significant cultural significance. Her story is featured in political discussions, art, and advertisements, yet it remains connected to the actual experiences of a young woman from the 15th century. Joan of Arc's life brings up important questions that people are still interested in today. These questions include how we interpret unusual experiences, how we determine our beliefs, and how we react to extraordinary bravery. Every time we try to answer these questions, we ensure that her story continues to be told. Her ongoing influence proves that certain individuals can surpass the constraints of their era. Joan of Arc remains a key figure in discussions about belief, self-identity, leading, and the impact of strong personal beliefs. The enduring appeal of her image, narrative, and impact endures because they relate to themes that resonate with people from diverse backgrounds. As long as people study history and talk about faith, Joan of Arc will be remembered as a symbol of unity and courage. Her life shows how one person can impact a country, inspire a culture, and leave a lasting legacy on the world. What do you think about Joan of Arc? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Before you go, be sure to click on the video shown on your screen.